Saw once again, my dude. Welcome back to Back Lot Banter, because today we are talking about the final, or at least the newest installment of the Saw franchise, Spiral from the Book of Saw. We're reviewing it, we're discussing it, and we'll be ranking it in our overall Saw ranking. Our previous video on that you can see in the corner there. It's a nifty little feature YouTube has. But we're going to be talking about the 2021 film starring Chris Rock, produced by Chris Rock, written by Chris Rock,
No idea. Don't think so.
directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. He's back. He's back in the helm of
Back
the
in the
Saw
saddle.
franchise, and
The saddle.
the Soddle, if you will.
Oh.
And I don't think we will be saying that again because I hate that. But Tucker, what did you think of Spiral?
Spiral from the Book of Saw. I actually saw this in theaters. Obviously, the first Saw movie I saw in theaters. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be saying Saw over and over again. Because I was 10 when Saw 7 came out
Yeah.
and didn't give a shit about Saw when Jigsaw came out. So this was fun to see as a big theater experience. You know, we've got that. We had the biggest possible screen in our thing. It had the freaking Dolby shake your ass sound.
I think that's what they call it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm a little disappointed by it. In fact, quite a bit disappointed by it. But
Mm.
it's a fine movie. It's just really underwhelming as a part of the Saw franchise.
I think I as a Saw franchise movie, I think I quite enjoyed it. I think it separates itself a lot better from being a sort of Saw anthology than Jigsaw did. And I think it sort of tries and succeeds a lot more to recapture that Saw feel a lot more
Sure.
than
Yes,
Jigsaw
I
did.
agree with that.
Yes, because when we talk about Saw feel, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about egregious color filters all over the
Yeah.
place. We're talking about make you sick to your stomach editing in
Oh yeah.
traps. We're talking about cops fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many wacky transitions in this, as I remember.
True.
We're talking about Tucker. Should we go through this movie the same way that we went through the others movies, Saw movies, in our Saw ranking?
By all means.
Okay, so let's start off with the characters, namely, uh, Detective Ezekiel Banks, as portrayed
Zeke
by
Banks, yeah.
Chris. Chris Rock. This was his
Did you say
idea.
Christ?
Christ
Chris?
Rock.
No, Chris Rock is the character or the actor that plays the character, Ezekiel Banks.
Truly. And as we sort of acknowledged up top, this movie was sort of kickstarted, and it was kickstarted by Chris Rock's sort of love with the Saw franchise. He's just like you and me, Tucker. He loves the
Mm-hmm.
Saw franchise.
Yeah.
And this was his idea for a Saw movie. And he cast him, I assume he cast himself in the lead role.
Yeah.
And I think he does a good solid job. He's chewing some scenery. He's got his bug eyes going out. He's like, when he's yelling at the other cops, he's like, there's nobody I can trust. I can't trust anybody getting a bullet in my back.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly a good actor in terms of comparison to the actors that we've gotten in the Saw franchise. It does make
Yes.
him feel a little bit out of place when you look at the scope of the Saw franchise because he's more professional. He doesn't quite hit the highs of serious acting that I think he probably wanted to or saw in his own mind.
Yeah.
But one thing I can say about this movie, well, I'm gonna say a lot of things about this movie, but
Mhm.
one of the main things is Zeke Banks is already a much more fascinating character and well-rounded personality-wise character than anyone we saw in Jigsaw,
Mhm.
than a lot of the characters introduced in 6 and 7. It doesn't quite hit the highs of the complexity that we've get from a Hoffman or a Strom
Mhm.
or a Kramer. But I'm very happy that we have a character that has a unique personality. He has a unique connection to his world, and it's portrayed by a competent actor who
Yeah.
knows what he's fucking doing.
Yeah, he's chewing scenery out there, and obviously opposite, or not opposite, but alongside this, we get just Samuel L. Jackson in this movie as well.
Well, it's a cameo role, I would say, because he only shows
Yeah.
up in like 4 scenes. The prominence of his character was oversold by the trailers
Very true.
and by the promotional material saying, Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, it's true. He's in the movie, but he's there for name value. He has a character, has a few Samuel L. Jackson moments where he's yelling and cursing,
Mhm.
but other than that, he's a background character.
Yes. And then, by the way, we're doing full spoilers for this in case you
100%.
haven't gotten that up to this point. But opposite what I was trying to say, opposite Chris Rock is the super secret villain of this movie, portrayed
Mm-hmm.
by Max Minella,
Mingala? I don't know.
the guy from The Social Network,
Mm-hmm.
as William something, right?
Shank.
William Shank, of
Yeah,
course.
because they had two characters with similar sounding last names. Shank and
Yeah,
Banks, the two partners. Which why? I don't
Shank and
know.
Banks. Tucker,
Shank and Bank, and I helped.
what did you think of Shank as a villain? We'll sort of spin this into traps in a minute here, but what did you think of him as a secret, top secret villain and his secret motivations?
Well, he's the worst twist in the Saw franchise.
Really, the worst twist.
What would you put above that worst twist? Like it's easy to see it coming. It's not very well executed in terms of the story. He's not very connected to the world. He's not a particularly interesting character. He has an interesting motivation, I would say, but it's not well executed. It's just blasé and
I guess
predictable and lame.
what was like the twist of Seven?
Well, Gordon, but
Oh,
yeah,
well,
but I would prefer that because again, connection to the world. Gordon is
well,
a more interesting character.
I appreciate
Execution is more interesting.
that they didn't try to tie this back to John Kramer in any and then he was also another Kramer apprentice. No, he is literally a copycat of the Jigsaw Killer, and I actually appreciated that a lot more in the idea of trying to create another story in the Saw world.
That's true. However, I would say, at least from the eyes of someone who appreciates the Saw franchise mostly for its interconnectedness, the fact that it didn't tie into his dad went to Jill Tuck's clinic, or some sort of even tangential connection to the other characters, to the previously established storylines, made this feel separate and in my opinion weaker because of that, because
Hmm.
the strength of the interconnectedness of the rest of the films, even if they're not well executed, is one of the main draws of the franchise, and this entirely lacked that. The only connection is, oh yeah, Jigsaw existed at one point, and you see a picture of his corpse
Well,
from Saw
yes.
4
Of,
or Saw 3, no 4. Fuck
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
yeah,
I guess if you are going in to be like, oh, it's the people he's connected to the characters I knew before. It doesn't have any of that. So in that way,
not at all.
it's not really necessary to be putting this in the Saw universe.
And I would say the reason I would say I'm underwhelmed by that is
Mhm.
it would have been so easy to tangentially tie it in. They're
Yeah, but
literally in the
also
same city. They're cops at presumably the same department, which
no,
often aren't that.
they're the South Metro Police, Tucker.
Okay, well they
The other
don't
department
mention.
we saw was just the Metro Police.
Okay, well, regardless, they don't. There's no mention of a corrupt cop that ended up turning into a Jigsaw killer with Hoffman. Like, there's ways that they could have at least referenced that ties it into the rest of the world in a more compelling way, and they
They could have
completely
really
avoided that.
MCU'd it right there.
Exactly, I think that's the idea.
No, I prefer that they do a separate thing, quite honestly, because like the Gordon twist in Seven, I think it is just like lazy. Like, here's a character you recognizing the whole story, but I do prefer them making it a separate story and self-contained, really.
Okay, well, we'll have to fundamentally disagree on that
Okay,
because that's my most major criticism about this film.
okay. Well, Tucker, you said that was a draw of the franchise. Another draw of the franchise,
Mhm.
obviously, is the traps.
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah,
Yeah, the saw traps, they're kind of they crop up a few times in these movies. So let's break these down because there's only a handful of them.
5.
So, oh, we got 5 traps. Okay, so
I
we
can't
start off.
remember them exactly, but Joe and I counted them when we came out of the theater, and we're like,
Okay,
wow, that was a underwhelming amount of traps.
okay, so we got this tongue trap. First of all, that's the first one.
Good, solid trap. It
Solid one.
reminds me a lot of classic Saw editing, close-ups
Mm-hmm.
on his face. You get the fucking crazy camera action. That, solid trap. Not
That's a
anything
good. That's a
spectacular,
solid.
but solid.
Yeah. Then what else do we have? You have the finger
Finger
trap.
trap, which
Yeah,
is also solid.
that's a very good one. I really enjoyed that one. The effects, the effects of the fingers being pulled off.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to me. The effects of Saw movies don't really get to me in a lot of cases, but that one did. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it points for that. We got the hot wax trap.
Eh.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
man.
Because it wasn't very complex. Wasn't very interesting.
Hmm.
Eh.
The glass blowing trap.
Pretty good. Pretty good one.
Yeah, I could really take or leave that one, quite honestly. It was just him just getting shredded by the broken glass. It was fine, I guess.
True.
And then, of course, you have the climactic the puppet trap at the
Yeah.
end.
Which
Uh,
is fine. It's an
I
interesting
actually
visual.
I also really enjoyed that visual and how they tied it back to the pig puppet.
Yeah.
Instead of Billy, we get the pig puppet in this.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Doesn't really change much, but it only sets to prove that Will Shank is his own killer. He created his own puppet,
Hmm.
so he's not actually Jigsaw. Ha ha ha.
And he says he has some offhanded line about like how Kramer said the spiral represented change and progress and stuff.
I
But
don't
I
think
asked
that's
I
that
asked
says
you
that.
I asked
Or
you later. I'm like, that's never in any of the movies, right?
well, no, it's never in the movies, but it
Yeah.
also doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, how does that make any sense?
The
It
the
doesn't.
only context of the spiral even existing is on the face of the Billy puppet,
Hmm.
uh, which is a part of
Well,
that character's
it appears
design.
it appears a few more times, like designs and traps and stuff like that in the rest of the.
Well, it's on the merry-go-round trap in 6.
Exactly. It's so
Sure, okay.
it's somewhat of a signature staple thing that they just transferred into its own movie.
Mhm.
Title of the movie. I don't know if you recognized.
True.
And I don't know. What was the other criteria that we used? We talked
Kramer.
about Kramer. Well, we don't have any Kramer in
No
this.
Kramer. It's a Kramerless film in a way that I was even surprised that they didn't even have some sort of flashback cameo, some sort of
Hmm.
scene of him talking that is inspiring Will Shank to become
Yeah.
a Jigsaw clone. But whatever. I mean, I don't know what Tobin Bell's up to, but I'm sure they could have got him.
They definitely could have, but I think it is a symptom of this movie. This movie does want to separate itself from that Saw Kramer Hoffman storyline,
Yeah.
in a way that Jigsaw that we've talked about. Jigsaw didn't do that at all,
Hmm.
and that's what. If we're going to talk about our ranking it here a little bit. I think that is part of the reason why I rank this above Jigsaw. I
Hmm.
think that the traps are better. I think that the characters are more compelling, and I do appreciate, which this is where we differ, that it does try to place itself in the future of the timeline and separate itself from those interconnected characters.
Yeah, I think on the whole, much more interesting characters than Jigsaw. I think the fact that they're able to finally strike that balance that I was looking for of saw griminess in especially the trap
Hmm.
sequences with the color grading and the snappy editing. They did a weird shaky cam, like they literally shook the camera a few times. I was like, what the hell is that? That's not reminiscent of the old ones. They were trying to create something new, but it did not work. But the fact is they had solid cinematography with a couple interesting shots in
Yeah.
the majority of the film, which is the cop drama sequences. And then they've recreated the soft feel and the trap sequences.
Hmm.
And I think that's a solid balance. I think maybe they could lean a little more heavily into the balance if they do continue this series. But I'm very happy that they at least attempted and succeeded in some ways to recapture that feel of the series. And yeah, I like Zeke much more than
Hmm.
I what Logan Nelson from Jigsaw.
Who could forget?
Logan
Who could
Nelson.
forget? Now, Tucker, before we get into our ranking, we're sort of jumping all over the place here. But before we get into our ranking, I do want to talk about. We talked about the twist a little bit. I want to talk about it a bit more because I had it pegged about from. I always have towards the beginning of the movie. I'm like, okay, it's either his partner or his dad is the killer,
Yeah.
and his dad
Mhm.
doesn't show back up. It's around the time where he gets the call. Well, first of all, when Will takes Chris Rock's phone,
Yeah.
and then when he's on the phone with him later and he's playing the baby noises or whatever on his computer, I'm like, that's a fake baby noise. I can tell from a mile away.
That's a
Um,
big brain move on your part. I mean, I did
Thank
not
you.
put together the phone or the baby thing, but
Hmm.
as it was going and characters started getting whittled off, I'm like, well,
We
there's
well
basically
also we never see him die either. Is the thing because
sure,
he
yes,
he fakes his own death.
100%. You're right. The skin trap, quote unquote, that
Yeah,
we
which we don't see.
is very underwhelming. It's a very strange and out of place sequence that I think honestly makes it very clear that that it's not him like dying and stuff
He's the
because they've
only
never
one.
done that.
Yeah.
It's a Saw franchise. You think they're gonna shy away from showing someone die?
Well,
No.
here's what I did think they were going to do that because they do cut away from that finger trap for a good long while.
Refocus your camera. Oh,
I
that was
know
good.
it's fine. They do cut away from that finger trap for a good long while. I'm like, are they not going to show this one? So
Yeah,
I think they were trying to pace that out a little bit. But yeah, it does cut back to the finger trap eventually. So he's the only person in the Saw franchise who we wouldn't see die
yeah.
explicitly.
Hmm.
So it's very obvious that he's the twist villain of this. But
Yeah.
I kind of like his motivation
His
because
motive is interesting. We've gotten
yes.
some interesting motives for the past few, and the way that they tie into the motivation of the killer, putting people into traps, and
Mhm.
the characters, both Will and Bobby in Seven, I think,
Yes.
uh, are not great characters. And you can go watch our video where we talk about those movies. They're not great, but their motivations are interesting, and I think that applies here as well. I think the
Mhm.
idea of him using saw traps to make a commentary on the corruption of the police system is
Yeah.
interesting. However, I think it's pretty kneecapped by the fact that he's like, "You're the one good cop, Zeke," but Zeke put like black tar in a guy's face and poured alcohol on a broken leg and like did a bunch of really crappy abusive
Yeah.
cop shit. So like he's just overlooking, or the script is overlooking the fact that no,
That's a
actually Zeke isn't a great cop.
That is a good point. Wait, who does he put the black tar? What was
That
that?
he puts the thing up in the basket and it sprays the guy's face.
Oh, yeah, he puts like the paint packet in
Yes,
there.
yeah. And then the guy breaks his leg, or he breaks the guy's leg, and then he pours
Yes.
alcohol on it to like torture him.
Yeah.
That's not good cop stuff. And a lot of the things
Well,
he was doing,
I
he was
think it
going
is.
outside of his purview to get things done, which is exactly
I
what
think here's the thing
Will
though.
didn't want to do. Another Will, by the way. I don't know why they had to name another character Will,
Nah, it's
but
all right. I think it's interesting. I think that stays in line with the whole Jigsaw killer mentality of like it makes sense to a point until you put a little bit of thought into some aspects of the story and like, well, that doesn't make any sense because this person did this and that
sure.
explicitly goes against the killer's mission statement. So I
Hmm.
think it's no worse or better than any of those, but I do like the overall idea of him wanting to weed out the bad cops in
Yeah.
that precinct and using Chris Rock as a sort of a pawn to do so.
Hmm.
I think it's in line with the sort of healthcare commentary that Saw Six
Sure.
has,
Good point.
but it's more explicit. So I actually prefer this to that healthcare storyline in Saw Six. So
Hmm.
if we may talk about our ranking here, I'm going to put this above Saw Six, but below Saw Four in our ranking.
Okay, so I need to pull up our ranking real quick, but I wanted to put it below between Saw 3 and Jigsaw, I believe.
Okay.
Um, so let's see. How does that you said between
I think if
4 and
we
6?
yeah, I think if we compromise,
That's fine.
it would go above Saw 3 and below Saw 6.
Yeah. So that I mean that's as even as we can get there because
Yep.
we're pretty evenly split. And we each have to compromise a little bit, and that's
Yep.
totally fine.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that you put it in the middle of Sakino, because Sakino, as we so affectionately refer to the
Mhm.
highlight of the Saw series, not counting one, as 4, 5, and 6, are so similar in
Yeah.
terms of the ways that they interconnect and style wise and all of that, that I can't see anything being in the middle of them. Anything, regardless of where the future of the
Mhm.
series goes, has to be on either side.
I think what broke it above for me was the police commentary being better than the healthcare commentary
Sure.
in my personal opinion. Um, but I am perfectly fine with putting it below Saw 6 as well because if you do look at that police stuff, it's really where it's coming to a climax. Hoffman is killing Perez and the earpiece guy. That's a scene that stands out to me as like, oh wow, shocking, Saw stuff
Mhm.
in that movie. So yes, that's what I'm perfectly fine placing it where we decided to put it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fair.
Okay. Well, Tucker,
Spiral, spiral, spiral.
I think that about we've spiraled out of control and into the end of our review here. And well, I had a good time with Spiral. Did you have a good time with Spiral?
I had a good time with Spiral. It's just pretty mediocre
Yeah,
in the
I'd
grand scale
agree.
of things. I think we both put it at a 2.5. I might have
Yeah,
had it at a 2. Let me check. No, 2.5.
yeah.
It's a fine movie. It's competently made. The
Hmm.
actors are honestly probably better than all the rest of the actors in the Saw series. Um, and it does recapture the tone. It just does a few things that I think kneecap its impact. And the fact is, in my opinion, it started off so strong with this unique style in terms of including interesting music choices and
Yeah.
visual choices, which did not carry throughout the rest of the film. And I think that is really unfortunate, considering if they had pushed that out, like if they had carried out the rest of the movie, it would have been a very unique entry in the Saw franchise that would have honestly pushed it above. I was
Mhm.
very happy with the beginning, but my interest in it, and as the twists were revealed and the traps, there's not a lot of traps, all things considered, played out. I was like, oh well, this is fine. It's
Mhm.
fine.
Well, Tucker, this is our first entry into like the summer movie season, and we'll be continuing down this long and arduous path as we go
Mhm.
back to the movies. And we'd like you to come with us. So if you'd like to hit that subscribe button and follow our movie reviews, our game reviews, and any other sort of content that we have on Backlog Banter, we'd greatly appreciate it. So thanks for watching, guys.